Hello once again out there to all of my Planet Zoo friends and fans. As promised, I am back with a new video here in Riverside Zoo. In the last video, we just kind of did a small tour around the zoo to catch up on its current state of progress, where things are located, and some of the plans I had in store for future progression. I also briefly mentioned that I would be using the Tropical DLC for my next build here in the zoo, and that's what we're going to be working with today. So, first of all, let's head through the park. Wow, it is just so busy right here. I think the peacocks might be the best animal in the entire park, at least from the guest point of view anyway. They just really love these guys. It's just always packed up here. But let's go ahead and head around this way. So I don't know, the red pandas are getting a lot of attention as well. But yeah, okay, anyway, let's go past the red pandas over here as we start to go into the rainforest area right here in front of the lemurs. So in that last video when I did the tour around the park, I kind of mentioned that I would be working in this area here for the next build. Since then, I've kind of changed my mind. I decided this was just going to be too small of a space, and I have a different plan for this side over here. Instead, I'm going to go over here to the right. So we've got this kind of a long stretch right down through here that I think would actually be perfect for the build that I want to work on. Alright, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started on that. So, which animal from the new Tropical DLC is going to be added to our little family here at Riverside Zoo? Well, that's going to be the Fossa. I took a look at all the different animals that we got in this new pack, and really the Fossa was the one that stood the most out to me because I'm a huge fan of the cats, basically. The big cats, even small cats, house cats, etc. I love cats. And the Fossa kind of resembled a cat in a way, and it was an animal that I had never heard of until they made the announcement for this DLC. So I actually had to look it up and find out some information about these little guys. And they're quite interesting. So they're not actually cats at all. In fact, they're more kind of related to the mongoose in most ways. Apparently they are from Madagascar, which explains a lot because every single animal in Madagascar seems to be some sort of weird science experiment. They're usually cute though. I mean, just look at the lemurs. And speaking of lemurs, that's actually the Fossa's favorite food. I know that sounds absolutely terrible. How could anything eat these tiny, furry, little beautiful creatures? But I mean, that's what animals do. They, especially the Fossa, it is the apex predator, the largest carnivore in Madagascar. So it's going to need to snack on something, and the lemurs are there to be those snacks. So let's talk a little bit about what it is we're actually building right now. Typically, whenever I go into a build for anything, a roller coaster, an animal habitat here in Planet Zoo, even something in Satisfactory, I like to do a lot of research to try to find some sort of inspiration for the build. In this particular case, I spent a ton of time looking at the Fossa in other zoos and stuff before I finally stumbled upon one that I liked. Most of the ones that I found were very, very small enclosures, or they were indoors in a nocturnal kind of building, and I considered doing a nocturnal building just for this and maybe some other animals. That was a thought that I had, and I considered that idea, but I just really wasn't sure how I was going to go about doing that. And then I stumbled across San Diego Zoo and the Africa Rocks section and their Fossa habitat, and just a single picture of what I saw I really liked. And then I found some video and stuff, and yeah, I kind of went from there. So what I ended up doing, or what this habitat for the Fossa is going to be, is a little bit like the one at San Diego Zoo. So at least that's where I'm taking most of the inspiration from. It's not going to be an exact copy, but it very much gave me the idea for what I want to do here. So the first thing we're doing here, as you can see, is I've been assembling a rock wall. I decided to take some of the faux rocks and I would kind of layer them kind of up, because the way that the one in San Diego is done is there's this huge rock wall on the back, and the Fossa kind of climb around on different layers of this rock. And looking at the rock wall, it has a little bit of layers to it, kind of in different colors. So there's a brownish color, and then there's a regular slate kind of color, and something about that really drew me in. as well as it being one of the largest enclosures I could find for the Fossa, and it gave them a lot of room to play around and a lot of room to run and jump and stuff. They were even jumping around on the nets as well. So that's kind of where all of this is coming from. So I was trying to kind of copy that effect of the different layers of stonework that it has. So I just took the faux rock and I layered upon layer upon layer upon layer, and I built one section, and then I just kind of took that and just started copying it over. And at first it didn't really look that great, I will be honest. I wasn't sure how this was going to come out. Now at this point what you're seeing is I'm just kind of taking the layers of rock and kind of building some platforms, and I wanted them to be able to get to these platforms, and I wasn't exactly sure how tall I was building this or how tall the Fossa were going to be, and I had to change some stuff here. But all in all, once I get finished with all this rock wall and everything, it actually came out pretty decent, I think, for the habitat. But right now it's not looking great, and I was kind of thinking, I don't know about this. I don't know if this is going to work or not. I don't know how this is going to look. But yeah, in the end, I think it does come out pretty good. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to put these kind of rocks here, and then I kind of thought that if I put them in certain spaces around here, just kind of like, think of it like a Mario level, you know, in Super Mario Brothers, where they're kind of like jumping from platform to platform. I kind of thought they would do that, but they're just a little too far up for them to get to. So in the end, I'm going to have to use some branches and some other ways to try to get those guys up onto these little platforms here. But yeah, so I'm just going to kind of take some other rocks and we're going to put them underneath of here to kind of give these platforms a little bit of stability and make it kind of look like it is all built into the rock wall. And just kind of like outcroppings is kind of what I'm trying to build. And it was right around this point where I think it kind of started looking a little better. Instead of just looking like layer upon layer of the same kind of rocks and everything, by adding these front things to it, these platforms, and then giving it more layers, more kind of a little more depth, I guess is the kind of the word I'm looking for. I think that's really where it started to kind of come out and be like, yeah, I think this actually could work. Because I'll be honest, I was really worried when I first had it all assembled and was just putting all the different layers on there. And of course, being a habitat, we had to find a way to kind of surround it as well. So I'm also just kind of trying to turn some of these rocks and stuff and some of these layers different ways, and again, just trying to give it a little more depth, plus to make it a little larger, and that way the Fossa will have a decent enough area in order to run around and play in, but also that it doesn't look repetitive, that trying to make it look a little more natural instead of more man-made. And a lot of times when you're working with the rocks and stuff, and you use a lot of the same rocks and you're just repeating that pattern, it does end up being quite repetitive. But I think this ended up being not too bad at all, just by kind of turning some of them and just kind of adding more layer upon layer to it. It ended up being a lot. Is it a lot of rocks for like this one habitat? Yeah, it kind of is. It's a lot of pieces on that one rock wall, which I'm sure will come back and bite me at a later date. But for now, yeah, the machine's kind of running it pretty good. I'm not losing any FPS by having all these rocks and stuff. It would be like if I was to have this up on the Steam Workshop and have it set where somebody could download it and use it in their own. In that point, when you're adding it, say you're playing franchise mode or something where money counts, a lot of these rocks are going to be quite expensive. So having so many in there, it's going to cost a lot of money in order to add this. But if you're playing sandbox, it's not that big of a deal. And of course, I'm just going to add a couple more kind of boulders around to it. Again, just to make it look not so repetitive, give it a little more texture. And then I want to try to work with these ramps a little bit. So in order to kind of get up to the other layers, the other platforms, I needed to kind of put some ramps that the Fossa could kind of climb on and get up there to it. Because having worked with mini habitats before, I know that this is usually an issue trying to get the animals to like get to certain heights and stuff, and even some ramps, if the ramp is like at too much of an angle, they just will not climb that at all. So I'm hoping that I've got this kind of good here, but I'm not 100% sure until we actually add the Fossa into the habitat. I also wanted to give it a little bit of an edge, so I'm using some of these boulders to kind of build this out, to kind of enclose the habitat. I didn't want to use the same kind of background pieces that I use, and I thought the boulders would be best there to kind of enclose everything in on the sides. Now eventually what I plan on doing is going ahead and adding in some mesh netting over top of the entire habitat, or some kind of fencing, but that's for later. Alright, so we're going to skip ahead a little bit here, and we're going to go into fleshing out our habitat a little bit more. I wanted to give our Fossa something that they can climb on, something they can play on other than rocks, and of course I wanted to add some foliage and some other things into the habitat. So I took a look through some of the pieces that we have and decided on these broken cherry blossom trees. I think those kind of are the effect I'm kind of going for to match the San Diego Zoo. And then of course we're gonna have to mess around with the land a little bit. What I'm gonna end up doing though is replacing these trees kind of later on in the video, which you will see. But right now I think these sort of work. And then of course I had to find some other trees and stuff, because you know we need some greenery in this. I don't want it to be just all rock. We need some more. We need some green in it. So I'm trying to find some trees that I think would work well in this habitat, but also I had to keep in mind that they had to be small trees, because I didn't want to put too tall of a tree in there, because I am planning again on putting a net mesh kind of all over the habitat to keep in the Fossa. I've never done anything like that before in any of my other builds, and I wasn't sure exactly how it's going to work out. But realistically, this should be on most habitats, specifically even the lemurs on the other side here of our Fossa habitat, because those lemurs are pretty good climbers, and I kind of think that maybe some netting over that one will be too. So depending on how well this one comes out, I may end up going back and doing that on the lemur habitat and maybe a couple other habitats as well. But yeah, I'm just struggling basically here to try to find the right trees to use in this habitat. Next, we'll be adding our entry gate for our zookeepers, and I wanted to use this kind of rock tunnel piece right here. I thought that would be kind of good to use along with the rest of the other rocks, and then we can put the gate right in between that. And then I'm going to use the foliage that we have here to kind of hide it somewhat, kind of over in the corner. Of course, it'll still be visible. It's not all that hidden, but I think the idea here kind of is insinuated that it is kind of behind the foliage and just kind of out of the way. Then I'll take some boulders, and I'm going to use more of the rock wall that I created for the back part of our habitat, and I'm going to place these along down this side of the path. And what this is going to do, it's going to hide a backstage area. This will be where I'll place a animal pen for our Fossa. That way they can kind of go into maybe a little cave that we will build shortly. And that way, once they go into that, they'll have like a place to rest and get any kind of medical aid or anything. And I may even also place a zookeeper's hut or something back in this area too. But it will all be hidden from the view of our regular guests. And right there where the red panda building is back there, maybe I'll kind of connect those two together into one area. Now at this point, I decided that I wasn't all that happy with the broken cherry trees that I had placed in the habitat. It just really wasn't fitting. They weren't large enough. I don't feel like they gave enough climbing space for my Fossa. So I decided to try my hand at making my own trees. This is something I've seen others do in videos on YouTube. And I know, of course, that you can also download some off the Steam Workshop as well that other people have created. And I did do that as well. I downloaded a couple of sets that looked kind of cool, and I decided I was going to use those as kind of a base for inspiration. So I put them into my game and kind of looked at how they were put together, and I thought, you know what, I can do this. So even though all the Steam Workshop items are there for people to use and make your life easier, I find that very rarely do I ever see any actual workshop items that are perfect for my needs exactly. So instead, I just kind of see how other people do it, and then I prefer to kind of make my own stuff for the most part. And that's what I'm trying to do here, and I'm struggling a little bit to try to get all the pieces to match up. But I think once I get everything kind of figured out on how these are going to work and kind of get the hang of it, I think they come out not too bad. I think the hardest part of making your own tree, to me anyway, was getting the actual base of it, the trunk, Once you get the trunk figured out, adding the limbs and stuff at that point is just, that's the easy part. So I've got my first tree kind of created. Now we're going to do a second one, and then I'm going to do a much smaller third one as well. So while we're building the tree here on the screen, I'm going to take a moment to kind of talk about how this video format is, because it's a little different than what I typically do. Typically, I have hours and hours and hours of footage of my builds, and I will usually speed those up. In order to fit them into the video and make them work, I usually have to go somewhere around like 6 times speed, and I've always felt that that was just a bit too fast. And I wasn't sure of any other way to do it, because it was just, there were so many things I wanted to show off during the build and how I was putting things together, that I didn't really want to cut it down anymore. And yeah, so I've been a huge fan right now of ZSH Plays. He's got a franchise thing that he's doing called San Bernardino Zoo. I highly suggest you guys go and check it out. It's really entertaining. And I like his build style and his videos. I think he's figured out just the right format, actually. So I'm going to kind of copy a little bit of how he's doing his, which is taking and doing it. I'm going to vary the speeds depending on what it is I'm showing off, and kind of cut them down a little bit and just edit out some of the boring parts and just kind of skip through the build a little bit as I talk. And that way you guys, it's not that fast, and you guys can kind of see how I'm putting things together for the most part anyway, at least better than 6 times speed. But it also gives you a chance to see what I'm doing, and I can show off the most important parts, I think, of the build. So as you can see, we now have our 3 trees that we're going to be using here right in the front of our habitat built, for the most part. I think they came out pretty good, considering this is my first time ever trying my hand at making these. Yeah, I think they come out okay. So we're going to take some of these climbing platforms and place them on the trees, so it looks like the branches are kind of holding them up. So I'm going to have to place the platforms down where I think, or where I feel like they should go, and then we're going to maneuver some of the tree trunks around so that it, again, like it looks like they're being held up by these tree trunks on this, and it kind of makes it look somewhat natural, even though we get, you know, these like platforms being held up by a tree. So not really all that natural, but at least it looks like we built them to where they would go on a tree, instead of just moving everything around to where it would need to go. I also wanted to do different levels as well on the tree, so I didn't want just one platform per tree. I wanted multiple platforms on some of these. So we have the small little tree trunk, which is cut down more there with just the one right on top, and then we have these 2 taller trees, and I thought that would be a good way to put maybe 2, maybe even 3 platforms on each of those. And then what we'll do is we'll take some of those vines, run them across from one tree to the other, like from one platform to the other platform, and then our Fossa can, you know, they can climb up these trees. They can, you know, kind of relax on these platforms, and then at that point they'll be able to, you know, if they need to cross over, they can climb around on these vines and get from one platform to the other. And maybe we'll even take some of these and we're going to run them across to the rocks as well. So it gives them another way to get to these multiple levels of the back rock on the main wall in the back. Now, placing these vines from one platform to the other, from one tree to the other, was a little bit of a challenge, because I ended up having to move a lot of stuff around just constantly to try to get these all lined up. It took me a lot longer than what you're seeing here in the video to kind of get these right. First, I tried some of the ones that were shorter, but they had more of a, what's the word? I guess a droop to them, and they didn't feel straight enough that an animal would be able to kind of walk across the top of it. So I wanted to use some of the ones that were more straight, and unfortunately those were a little longer than what I was kind of hoping that they would be. So again, having to move some of these trees around in order to get the platforms to connect using these vines. Yeah, it took me a little bit, but again, another thing that just kind of ended up working, and by the time I got done with it, I was like, yeah, this looks really good. So I also noticed here on this, the smaller tree trunk, I had this much larger kind of limb kind of sticking out there on the bottom, and since it was kind of close to the ground, I thought maybe if we put that, maybe another platform right there on that one, then maybe our Fossa could kind of jump from the ground to that. I don't think they actually would in the game, but you know, they can kind of climb on top of that. It's just having it closer to the ground, I thought was just one more option for our Fossa to climb around and get to these different platforms and stuff. So now we're going to take one of these vines here and we're going to connect it from our platform here on this tree over to our rock platform. And the one I'm trying to use here isn't long enough, and the only way I could maybe make this work would be to kind of change some of the stuff I'd already done around. I just was not wanting to do that. So in the end, I'm going to take a much larger vine and we're going to connect it from one side to the other and then just kind of have it go into the rock. I think that actually works the best. Of course, now that would also bring us to the point that we have to hide the vine inside of the rock. So we're going to slant that platform a little bit, as you saw there. And I also wanted to make sure that it was kind of right on the very top of that rock too, because too far down and the animals won't be able to move from the vine to the rock. It's all in the placement, I have found. After messing around with these for quite a bit, if you don't get it just right, if one thing's not rotated the right way, if the vine's just in the wrong place, the animal, once you look at like where its movement is, when you go into that heat map to see where the animal can move to in its habitat, you'll see that it just won't go from one area to the other because it gets to the end of this vine and then it can't go anywhere else. And just by changing something slightly, like rotating a rock or something, and then it just works perfectly well. So I've kind of experimented with these a little bit, and that's what I found. So I'm hoping that what I'm doing right here that you guys are seeing now is going to end up working. In other words, once we get the Fossa in here and we take a look at the heat map, we're going to have to change some things around, and I really don't want to have to do that, but I'm sure I'm going to have to anyway. I don't know if this tree that I have kind of laying down here over here on the edge on the right there from where I'm working at is going to work or not as far as getting them from that lower area to that top outcropping. I don't know if these vines from one area to the other, I don't know if the Fossa are even going to use those. I hope so. Are they going to use that cherry tree right there in the very front right there to climb on top of that middle rock outcrop? Who knows? But once we get our Fossa in there, we'll find out at that point. All right, so now that we have the inner part of our habitat done, I'm going to work on the outer part. And by that, I mean the fencing. What keeps our animals in and our people out. So I'm going to do this by building a small section first. That way, instead of having to place down each and every little piece along the line, I can just have this one section and then I can just copy and paste it all along the edge of the path. So I'm going to start with some concrete. So right there where we kind of have the indention in the ground, right at the edge of our habitat, the ditch, shall we say, I'm going to place some concrete here first. And that way it kind of comes straight up to a concrete wall. And then from there, we're going to have some stone, and that's going to kind of be the edging right along the path that separates the concrete from the path. And then this right here, this fence, I think is perfect. I really, really like this fence. And I like the bars kind of on it, the metal parts. And I'm going to place it so that the curvature is facing our guests, because I feel like this kind of forces them further away towards the path and not kind of leaning over into the habitat. Not that it really matters anyway, since we are going to put a mesh fencing over top of all of it. So yeah, but I don't know. I felt like that kind of looked best, and that's why I wanted to do it. I'm also going to change out the stone that I was using here to something that looks not as mossy. I just wasn't feeling the mossy stone, and I think this stone works better. So now we have our one section here. So once I get this bar kind of right, we're just going to take this, we're going to merge it all into one piece, and voila. Now all we have to do is take this one piece and just move it right around the edge right here, making sure it connects, but it also is like right on the edge of the path. It is going to be curving somewhat because the path itself kind of curves. So, you know, that does make it a little difficult towards the end of this because I have to move some of the concrete around. It's not perfect, but in the end, it works, and I really like it. Now, I do end up making some just kind of final adjustments here. I felt like maybe the fencing was, I don't know, maybe a little too curved out towards the path, so I was trying to move it around here a little bit. Also, I wanted to kind of move it up so it get more of the metal bars right there. I didn't feel like it was tall enough, so I'm just trying to fix most of that and get it just right. Of course, I wasn't really thinking though, by taking every one of the pieces here and then raising them up and kind of turning them where it's curved, it kind of messed it up a little bit, and I didn't feel like fixing it, so we're just going to leave that how it is. After that, I'm going to take some more boulders and we're going to do some more rock work around here, right here around the edge of the habitat on each end. Kind of fixing our walls in. We got to enclose it all and kind of fix it so that once we are ready to put our netting on, which again, at the point I was building all this, I wasn't 100% sure how I was going to do that, but I kind of wanted to raise the trees and everything up here a little bit and just kind of make everything kind of cohesive right in this little area here and do the best I can to make everything kind of match and kind of all be one area for the most part. Now comes time for what I expected to be the hardest part of the entire build, because I honestly had no idea how I was going to go about doing this. In the end, it turned out it wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be, even though I didn't really get it the way I was hoping. So the San Diego Zoo, their Fossa exhibit has like a mesh netting that kind of goes around it to keep the Fossa in. Instead, what I'm using here is this chain link fence, and the way it all ended up being kind of straight instead of it didn't have kind of like the natural waves like a netting would have. And I guess, like I'm saying, it just kind of ended up being more straight. So I guess it kind of looked more like just chain link fence, which I guess that's the pieces I'm using. And I wasn't sure how to get it to. I would have no idea how to make it look kind of like wavy and more like netting that's kind of drooping down. No idea how I would even go about doing that. So yeah, I guess we're just going to go with kind of a chain link kind of idea here instead. So as you can see, I've placed all of the chain link in. I have first put it so far up, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, I believe I ended up raising this some and I had to redo sections of it. But so I do the front piece first, and then I kind of went back with it at an angle, so that way we'd have more area in the top in the back of it and not as much in the front, if that makes sense. So this was right here, I noticed I had kind of messed up by placing all of the mesh down first. I wasn't sure where the ends of each piece was, so trying to get these bars right here to make it look like a cage essentially. I wanted to give it some support, so I wanted to place these beams in it, these metal beams, which I'm not even using metal beams. I'm actually I think these are wood, and I just painted them black. I noticed that as I was actually working with it. As soon as I started like getting kind of close in on it, I was like, oh, that's not even metal, that's like wood. Oh well, too late. I'm just going to go with it. It looks like metal, so sure, whatever. So I'm going to take these kind of thin poles and we're going to change these, and that's going to be the support that we're going to work with. So once I get all of this built, like this one section, again, just like I did with the fencing, I'm just going to take it and copy it and kind of rotate it slightly so that it goes along the edge of the path along with our fencing that we made. And this actually introduced an entire new problem to the build that I guess I was expecting it. Like I said, I expected this to be complicated and I wasn't sure how to go about it. But as we had each piece here of like each section that we placed down to match the curve of the path, as it was angling up towards the back of the wall, as you can kind of see here, there's going to be pieces that are missing. So as I was moving these along, I was trying to think, how am I going to do this? How is this going to work? The only way I could possibly think of was to double the chain link and see if maybe that would kind of work. And I wasn't sure if it would, because these are some pretty big gaps. And where each piece is going to be at an angle, I mean, is the chain link even going to match up? I had no idea if this was going to work or not. And here I was, building something kind of complex here, and it's just like, man, I hope this works. Also, I've got these big, giant trees in the way here too that I placed down, so I got to find a way to, something to do with those. And I really like these strangler fig trees, these giant trees. They're just perfect for this area, and I wanted to use them, but I wasn't sure how, because I can't put them inside because they would stick out the top of the cage. So anyway, going back to what I was saying though, as you can see here, I had these huge gaps, as the bigger gaps towards the back, and it just kind of angled back that way. So I was just gonna try to move these bars in and kind of close up that. And then right here, I was just going to see, can I make this work? Can I take these chain link fences and move them over and kind of match them in? Is that actually going to work? And surprisingly, yes, it does seem like it actually does kind of work for the most part. If you do it just right, it does kind of overlap in some areas, but I don't really think it's that noticeable. And it totally worked, and it really did surprise me. Moving along, I wanted to put some more finishing touches up here because I still felt like our back wall back there was just a little too repetitive and it needed something else. And I really wanted to make this feel more tropical, more green, I guess you could say, because I wasn't able to put as many trees into it as I liked. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the scavelia, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, but these bushes essentially, and I'm going to place them kind of along the walls to make it look kind of like mossy walls for the most part. And again, I think this also helped it quite a bit to really make the habitat pop. And this is something that I should probably work on a little more and try to perfect this idea. I've seen other people do this. They've taken like some of the foliage in the game and they've put it on the wall and they just make it look so good. It's like so beautiful. Mine, not perfect, but I think it gets across the point that I'm actually going for. Now we are going to go ahead and put our barrier in around the habitat itself. So I'm going to start right here where we're going to put our keeper door in, which is right in this little like rock tunnel thing that we put there. And I'm going to put a concrete barrier for this area. And then I'm going to take and extend it out a little bit here. And then I'm going to use some chain link fence to do like a bit of a windowed area. This is going to be the caging essentially. So I'm putting in a backstage area here where the animals will be able to go, and they'll be, when they're not in the actual habitat, they'll be in here sleeping, or where the zookeepers can kind of keep track of them, do any kind of thing they need to do outside of the regular view of guests. Then I'll take this and we're going to put it right around the edge of the habitat behind all this rock. I'm going to go with concrete steel, and then once we get to the edge over here, before we get to the mesh, I'm going to change this off to a null barrier because we don't want this to be seen. This is going to be an invisible barrier, and the fencing that we put in here should keep our Fossa inside of the habitat. So I'm just going to make this all the way around here, just outside, like right in between the fence and the mesh, and then connect that up to the other side here where our door is going to be. Now, for some odd reason, I have this bug that's been happening to me with the game. Even like the last time I played it, which is, it's been a bit. But here lately, I think it could be where I'm using mods, but I'm not sure. I will place a door down, and the door will be down in the ground. And then I'll have to delete it and then replace it to get it to kind of be normal. I don't know why this happens to me. Again, I feel like it might be maybe a mod I'm using or something that's causing that, but I don't know if anybody else who's using mods is having that problem or not. But yeah, it's an issue I've been running into, and I have to deal with it by just placing the door down and deleting it and then replacing it back. So I'm just gonna kind of do some smoothing here around the edge, and yeah, we're just about done. So I'm just gonna move some rocks around right underneath of this little platform, the ramp that goes up to the platforms. And then I'm going to take and put one of these like little tunnels down. Same thing we did for the keeper door, but I'll push it down into the ground a little bit. And I'm hoping that it's going to be enough space for our animals to kind of go through and just kind of dig it out. So that way they have a path from the habitat into their little shelter back here. Next up, we're going to place some hay in here. That'll give them a place to be able to sleep. And I think that will call it a day. Alright, so enough of the time-lapse build. Let's take a look at what we have here. So, as you can see, I've got all the mesh netting all the way around. I think this turned out okay. I mean, again, I was really hoping for more of a, what's the word I'm looking for? More of a mesh netting kind of look instead of just kind of chain link fence, but I mean, it is what it is. I'm looking at this right here and I'm seeing some things aren't matching up, but I mean, I can fix that later. Not a big deal. I think the foliage turned out pretty good. I was able to find some trees to put in here that would fit underneath, and you know, looking at this, I'm kind of thinking that maybe, just maybe, I might be able to maybe I could raise this up a little bit. But then this tree right here, I had to place this tree just perfect. As you can see, I come over here and I kind of pushed some things back over here and kind of made a place where I could have a tree kind of sticking out of the rocks right there. I used some scaviola and some ferns and some other stuff to kind of throw in there to give it a little bit of a green kind of look there. A little bit of ground, a little bit of maybe some growing area there. Our vines look pretty good. I'm not sure how this one's going to work. I don't know if our Fossa will walk across that or not. But yeah, I painted these platforms kind of a green on top to make it look more like leaves, I guess. And I don't know, maybe they could be a little darker. Maybe they kind of look like a bit of a neon. You've got your little tunnel here. I can probably work on this a little bit more as well. Maybe do some concrete in the back of this to make it look more kind of like man-made back in here. But then they will come through here, hopefully anyway. And then they have their little resting area. Now, I haven't really done a whole lot with this backstage area yet. I might save that for later. I don't know, maybe I can do a live stream or something where I'm working on these little small details and just fixing stuff. Something like that. But I think it is time to go ahead and get our Fossa in here. So let's take a look and see what we have available Fossa-wise. So we're going to go to animal trading here. And, oh, look, I've already got the list up here. So automatically I see a silver one. Looks like it's a male. Let's take a look at this guy here. So his immunity is at 50%. That's not great. That's not horrible. Everything else is pretty good. I think we're definitely going to adopt him. Yeah, so we'll grab him. And I'm going to need a female. So we got a bronze right here. Let's take a look at her. Let's see. Longevity's not great. Immunity's not great. Let's take a look at the other one here. What do we got in this one? This one, 42, 58, 33. It's kind of low all the way around, but the immunity's not bad. I think I'm going to go ahead and grab this one. I mean, the size, it's kind of large, and the fertility is good at 67%. So I think that's a decent one there. Maybe we can, get some Fossa babies that are better than what we have. So I'm going to go with these two, and let's go ahead and grab that one. And the one that we put into, I'll just go into animal storage here. We'll grab these two right here. Oh, I got to check mark them. Been a while since I've done this, so I'll check mark both of those guys. We're going to send them to the zoo. So I think I have to go inside of the cage in order to put them down. Yeah, all right, there we go. So I'll throw them in here. There we go. Delivery is scheduled. All right, so now we just got to wait for them to get delivered. And here comes our first Fossa into the habitat there. The other one is right behind us, so it should be here in just a moment. Here comes our second one. And yeah, these guys kind of look really cute. I mean, they're almost cat-like, but they kind of look like a mongoose in a way as well. Love those big long tails. Very muscular animals. Good for climbing. All right, so let's see. We got one heading over here. Let's see where he's heading. Does he see a way out of the habitat? No? Oh, I think he thought he saw a way out. He's just kind of exploring for the most part. Alright, so let's pause the game real quick and take a look and see how we are going to do this. So I'm going to go into our heat map. We're going to go into, let's see, habitat, traversable area, and click on this guy. And then I'm just going to kind of zoom out here a little bit. Let me go to keyboard controls. Alright, so yeah, I mean, I'm seeing most things look about right. Okay, so it doesn't look like they can use this one, and I don't know why. Okay, that's kind of odd. Why can't they get up here to these top things? Interesting. Can they not just climb up there and then use it? I feel like they should be able to, but for some odd reason they can't, and I don't understand that. So I'm going to have to play around with that and get that to work. This looks right. It looks like, yeah, they can kind of climb up here. Oh, they can even get up on this point. Oh, and they can escape there. Oh, okay, I'm going to have to fix that real quick. Okay, so that's one place they can kind of get out at. Wasn't expecting that. It looks like these platforms are going to work. But again, why can't they go from here to there? That's odd. Don't understand that. They can climb these palm trees? Huh. Wasn't expecting that either. But okay, we're going to leave that. I can now make things like non-climbable if I wanted to. And I'm just going to leave that as it is. The trees, though. What's up with the trees? I thought they could climb these trees. Yeah. Okay, I don't know what's going on with that. Yeah, okay, so let me fix this little area back here where they can get out real quick. Alright, so I am back. I fixed a couple of the problems, or at least I thought I fixed a couple of the problems. One of our little Fossa did get out. So after I got done repairing the fence and fixing some of that, I looked and somehow or another they had gotten over into this area. I don't remember which one it was, the male or the female, but they got over into here somehow. I don't know how, but they got out through the door or something. I've never seen that happen before, but yeah, it looks like I fixed most of the issues. I kind of worked around on this little area up here, so now it does show that this is traversable up here. I need to give them a reason to get up here, so I'm thinking about maybe putting water or something up here. I'll probably put the water in a shelter, though. Yeah, I'm not seeing them climb the trees, so I don't know why they're not doing that. Yeah, but let's take a look at our heat map one more time here. So we'll go into that traversable area and select our animal if I can. Come here. Come here. There. All right. So yeah, it looks like this is fixed. So again, I'm not seeing them climb this. I don't know what I need to do to have them climb that. Maybe I need to put roots or something along the side of it. Maybe they can't actually climb the main part. It says it's climbable though, so I don't know. As you can see, the vines here that stretch across from this platform to the platform, they can get over here. This does show that they can get up here. And also, right here, again, it still shows that they can get out here. And I don't see where. Like, I'm looking at this and I see fence and more fence and lots of fence. So I don't know how they can get out up here, but it says there is a way for them to do it. So also, I think one of them did get out again. I'm hearing the alarms going off. Are you over here again? Oh, wait, right there. There's a breakable area right here. How? How is that a breakable area? Weird. Okay. Yeah, okay, that does look like that one. Just use this tree to climb up in there. And oh, no, the other one's right here. It's right here. So they're both in here. They didn't escape. Something escaped, though. Probably a peacock, if I had to guess. I'm still having problems with the peacocks getting out. Alright, so let's turn off the heat map, and yeah, let's take a look at our area here. So I need to add some enrichment items for them, which, again, I'll probably do at a later time. But this is our new Fossa habitat that we have for Riverside Zoo. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this format. The video did run a little bit longer than I had hoped it to do. I was kind of hoping that I could get this in a shorter one, but at least it's not like an hour long, so there's that. But yeah, thanks guys for watching the video. If you enjoyed this build, make sure you give me a thumbs up and give me some comments. We need some names for our Fossa, so I would love to hear what you guys think we should name our he and her Fossa. And yeah, I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with. And that's going to do it. So wherever you guys are in the world, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Thanks for watching. I'm going to go fix some problems here.